we will be happy to share our findings in this research. And I congratulate the SRL for this talk series. I hope it's going to be first of many talks that you will organize. Thanks for inviting us to this important talk series. We have a presentation, and I will share my screen. I will start with giving kind of a background of our research study, and I will leave the microphone to Mehmet for sharing the findings of our research study, and then I will come back for talking about some policy recommendations at the end, and then maybe we will have some time to have some questions and try to answer your questions on our research study. So as Mustafa said, it's titled as Exploring the Demand Side of Online Radicalization. So as all of you know, internet has a great role in our life today, and social media, and it facilitates our life. But as we all know, it's also abused and exploited by criminals, and specifically extremists and terrorists. And in our study, we wanted to understand the role of social media and, in general, the internet in the process of radicalization. So there's a huge literature on radicalization, and radicalization is defined as a process in many research studies, and there are lots of studies on that process. But we wanted to understand specifically the role of social media, how the extremists use social media, how they get radicalized by using social media, and after being a radical person, how they use social media in their terrorist acts, and how they use it in their mobilization. So that were the objectives of our research study, basically. So when we look at the existing literature on how cyberspace, the online platform, social media used by terrorists, we can mention a few things. On top of the list, maybe recruitment. They use internet to recruit new people. They need more human resources, as any organization. Terrorist organizations also need more people, so they use the internet to recruit more extremist people to their organization. And online propaganda, basically terrorism is based on political ideology. They need to disseminate their ideology to their followers, to recruit new people, and also to justify, to legitimize what they did, their horrible acts. So they need some sort of propaganda tools and platforms. So internet gives them a huge opportunity to disseminate their ideology. And also communication. Any organization needs communication between themselves, between the members of the organization. Terrorist organization needs those tools to communicate. The internet gives them those tools. Now they have the encrypted platforms to communicate, to share their messages, and to plot their activities. And also fundraising is another purpose of use for the internet. They need money, they need resources, and they invite their followers to donate to their activities, and sometimes transfer their resources, their money, the funds, and also launder, like money laundering. So the top four of these, the ways of use of internet are kind of facilitation of their activities, like tools. But the fifth one is specifically cyber terrorism, which is the area of expertise of Mehmet. Maybe he can talk more about it. But in this one, cyber terrorism, they basically use the cyberspace as a means of terrorist acts. So they target, they attack their so-called enemies, like state or non-state organizations, or even individuals, by using the internet, like their networks, their hardwares and softwares, to give damage, to give harm to their enemies. So these are the ways how internet is used by terrorists and extremists. And there's a huge literature on that, as I said. But we wanted to look at the other side of this equation. So there are two parties. On the one part, there is the terrorist organization exploiting the internet, but there are the people who are getting radicalized through the internet. We wanted to look at the demand side. So the supply side is here. So this is the supply side, how terrorists use internet. But the demand side, there is a gap in the literature. There is a missing part. We wanted to address that gap in the literature in our study. As I said, like here, supply. There is the increasing visibility of the terrorist organization. There's huge research on that, but we wanted to look at the other side because uh, internet. We thought that internet may facilitate the process of radicalization. So, just to give a definition of online radicalization, how we can define online radicalization, we can say it's kind of a process. Again, radicalization is a process. Online radicalization is also a process. It's a process whereby individuals, through their online interactions and exposures to various types of internet context, come to view violence as a legitimate method of solving social and political conflicts. So they already are involved in some sort of individual, social, political conflicts like identity conflicts, psychological problems, social problems. To solve these problems, they are inclined towards those violent ideas, those extremist ideas. Uh, so to legitimize those tendencies towards violent ideas and extremist ideas, they use their interactions, online interactions. So that's the brief definition of online radicalization. So in our research, we wanted to understand that process actually, how ordinary people like you and I become a radical person by using online materials, by interacting with those materials. To understand that, to enlighten our research study, we relied on two different models, two different theoretical models: uses and gratification model and encoding and decoding models. So these two models are in the literature. So looking at these models, first of them, the uses and gratification model says that people have needs, and then to address those needs, they rely on some social media and, in general, media sources, but specifically in our study, social media. They have psychological and social needs. To address those needs, to meet those needs, they have to go to the internet and look for some responses to their needs. So these needs can be information needs. Basically, they need some more information. For example, a person who is looking for a religiously related information, they search certain key terms to find the answer, or they have some grievances, some concerns about the ongoing things around the world. Wars are going on, economic problems, pandemic, COVID-19, these kinds of conflicts and personal or global issues makes people to search for some answers to their needs. So uses and gratification model says that people use the internet, use the social media, or in general media sources to address those needs, to find some answers to their concerns and conflicts. The second model helps us to better understand the use of internet by the extremists, which is encoding and decoding model. As I said, this is a two-part interaction. One party is the terrorist group who are disseminating the propaganda. They are giving the message, they encode the message, and the other party, who is the user of that information, who is the person who is being radicalized, they decode the information. And then this model says that it depends on the individual differences. So each person might decode that information in a different way based on their social and psychological and individual differences, personality differences, their life experiences. So these kinds of things make some people more susceptible to be radicalized when they look at the online material. So not everyone gets the same impression or affected by the radical material online in the same way, this model says. So in combination, uses and gratification model and encoding and decoding model tells us that there is a process which makes people radicalized, and then that process might be different for each individuals. So in our research, we wanted to understand how it is so, how people become radicalized and how they differ from each other when they are interacting with radical material online. So in our study, we focused on a specific sample in Canada. We looked at certain names who are being revealed as extremists by the Canadian government, Canadian officials, specifically Public Safety Canada. We searched for some certain government and scholarly reports to find those names, and we came up with a list of 51 extremists who were born in Canada or who immigrated to Canada, and at some point in their life they went abroad to join terrorist groups. They are mostly, all of them are Islamist radicals, and then we searched for two databases about these names. So we have the list of their names. So we started to look at different documents where their names appeared. So basically, two databases. One of them is CanLII database, which is a database including the court documents. All of the court documents in Canada are publicly shared in this database. We searched the names of these extremists and found the court documents on these individuals. And also we looked at the media content, like the publicly available open source media database on LexisNexis. So a combination of these two databases gave us our own database. We created our own database based on the information we gathered from these two platforms, and we had the information of these about these individuals in our database. So basically, we can categorize the information that we gathered about these individuals under four groups. First of them is the background information, including their age, gender, ethnicity, educational background, income level, and things like this. The second category is radicalization process, like how they became a radical person. If the court documents and the media content gave us information about how they became a radical person. And the third group of variables about these individuals were their terrorism involvement. So yes, they were radicalized, but how they were involved in terrorism, what kind of act of terrorism that they were involved. So we coded these individuals based on their involvement in terrorism activities. And the fourth category is, which is the main point in our research study, is their use of social media. How did they interact with internet and social media platforms in two different stages, when they were being radicalized and after they were radicalized? So we looked at those articles and court documents and coded all of these individuals, and we created our database on these individuals about these four main categories. And then we analyzed it. I think Mehmet will share the rest of the things about the findings of our research study.
All right. First, thank you, Mustafa, for having me and for organizing this webinar. And thank you, Davut, for summarizing the first part of the research. I can share indeed my own screen if you wish.
I'll stop sharing.
Okay. All right. So I will discuss the findings of this research. I want to start with, summarizing some demographic information. We first examined the gender composition within our sample. As Dr. Akra mentioned, we have 51 individuals in our sample, but we could not find all the data or relevant information regarding the radicalization process of all individuals. But we have the data for some demographics, including the gender. So it revealed the research, the findings revealed a significant male dominance, which is not surprising, with 47 individuals identified as male and 4 individuals as female. And historically, female participation as foreign fighters was below 1%, according to research prior to 2012. However, after the civil war and the emergence of ISIS, the number of women, joining these movements, especially from Europe, North America, Australia, like the Western countries, increased and reaching around 10% among all foreign fighters. And notably, women from European Union member states accounted for up to 18% of all foreign fighters departing to Syria to join the fight there. So we can say that the female to male ratio among foreign fighters is indeed higher in European Union countries than in other Western societies. But in our, Canadian sample, there are two female foreign fighters out of 28 foreign fighters. So I have to say that the 51 individuals in our sample, not all of them are foreign fighters. Some of them went to Syria to join the fight, but some others radicalized and stayed in Canada and joined in extremist activities or extremist groups in Canada. The educational background of extremists reveal that a majority indeed had pursued higher education, contrary to the maybe the public belief. Indeed, extremists are, according to many other studies in this area, are indeed received higher education. So we could find information for 24 individuals related to their educational background, and 17 out of 24 extremists received some form of post-secondary education. Previous studies have indeed similar findings, so I can say that our research aligns with the previous research in terms of the educational background. For instance, in a 2016 research investigating the connection between extremism and education, found that around 70% of the sample, undertook higher education, and that study had a significantly larger sample size with 300 extremists. Another study from 2014 reveals that 75% of lone wolf extremists indeed received post-secondary education. We also investigated the radicalization process of the individuals in our sample, and we also looked at the radicalizing agent. And we were able to find relevant data regarding 32 individuals, 32 cases. I can say that social media and the internet played a crucial role in the radicalization process for those individuals, for those 32 individuals. We can say that, at least 64% of the cases, the internet and the social media were influential in that radicalization process. So it played a role, the social media and the internet, they played a role in radicalization for at least 21 extremists out of 32. The study also revealed, sorry, let me go back here. Okay, so the study also revealed some radicalizing agents, okay, including family connections, social circles, radical clerics, and also recruiters. In at least 14 cases, family members or friends were influential in their path to radicalization. And social media also intensified these influences by providing platforms for extremists, so they can, use the social media to, share radical messages. They use it to recruit individuals, and it allows them to reach out to individuals, particularly isolated individuals, and help them connect with extremist networks. We also have some other findings about the ages of those individuals. So we found that like the age of those individuals ranged from 16 to 25. So this is when they first radicalized. So with 21 is the average age. So it reflects the vulnerability among younger people to extremist ideologies. So this table shows their terrorism-related activities, and you can see here is that 28 of them indeed were foreign fighters. 28 out of 51 individuals, so it's around 55%. They left Canada to join foreign extremist organizations, mostly heading to Syria. Meanwhile, others were unable to leave. They attempted to leave, but they could not. They remained active in planning or executing terrorist activities or extremist activities in Canada. So we can say that 25% of these individuals, and I also should note that some of these observations engage in more than one type of terrorism-related activities. But 28 of those 51 individuals joined the fight in Syria or in Iraq or in that region in other countries. So let's look at the role of social media and the internet in the radicalization process. So we can see that the social media acts as both a catalyst and a facilitator for extremist ideology. Our study proposes a comprehensive four-step model for online radicalization. I will discuss that model. But we know that based on the findings, at least 26 extremists use social media for terrorism-related activities after they become radicalized. So they use the social networking sites to share their experiences and use it to radicalize and recruit other individuals. All right, so we developed a model based on the findings of this research. So this is a four-step model, including accessibility of extremist content, individual susceptibility, mobilization for action, and propagation of extremist messaging. So each step illustrates the progression from initial exposure to active participation in extremist activity. So the first step involves the accessibility and the availability of extremist content on social media platforms. So these platforms provide, a vast array of extremist material, including propaganda videos, digital publications that offer extremist interpretation of the religion. There are some reports conducted by several think tanks and some research institutions. Like according to a report from Brookings Institute in 2015, ISIS supporters used Twitter, now X, to disseminate extremist content. There has been an estimated of 46,000 Twitter accounts back in 2015, and they were used by ISIS supporters. So it highlights the scale at which social media can serve as a distribution network, for radical ideology. And the second stage considers the user's susceptibility to extremist messaging due to their social or psychological backgrounds. So not all individuals who saw those radical contents on social media go into that radicalization process, right? There are some differences between individuals that determine whether they are more susceptible to radicalization. So individuals with certain predispositions, such as personal crisis, problematic family dynamics, problematic childhood history, or some psychological vulnerabilities, are particularly at risk to become radicalized. So according to research and some radicalization theories, such predispositions can create a cognitive opening, making them more receptive to radical ideologies that promise meaning or a sense of belonging or identity. So an individual search for identity or community online can make them targets for a terrorist narrative that exploit these vulnerabilities. So we see that, those organizations, it's not only jihadist organizations, indeed, many other types of terrorist organizations, they typically target individuals, younger individuals, who experience some sort of identity crisis or identity conflict. So they typically target those individuals because they are more vulnerable. So like personal crisis, like unemployment or some family issues, they can lead individuals to seek guidance or support, sometimes online. And such, experiences can make them more susceptible to extremist ideologies. And particularly when they encounter those, ideologies during their online interactions, they are more likely to go into that radicalization process. And the third step involves the mobilization towards action. So some of those individuals who are radicalized move to this third step, but it doesn't mean that all radicalized individuals take action. Not all of them, indeed. Most of them may be radicalized, but they do not act in any extremist activity, any terrorist activity. They do not join any terrorist group or do not carry out any terrorist activity. But some of these individuals may decide to join extremist organizations or perpetrate extremist activities or terrorist attacks. social media not only inspires these actions, but also facilitates logistics. Like directly mentioned, terrorist groups or extremist groups, they use these platforms to share, messages and communicate with each other, particularly through encrypted messaging applications. So these platforms indeed allow them to communicate with each others and allow recruiters to communicate with vulnerable individuals. And they can also coordinate actions, activities, extremist activities. So these platforms, we can say, provide necessary tools to connect aspiring extremists with established networks or individuals already participating in extremist activities. The final stage in this model is the propagation of extremist content. So it creates also a feedback loop that sustains the extremist material online. Radicalized individuals, according to our research or findings, often share their experiences and insights after they join these groups, and particularly when they join the fight in the Middle East. These platforms, also allow them to share their experiences online and to broadcast their activities and inspire other like-minded individuals. So it can attract, this propagation can attract more individuals to extremist ideologies, and it also maintains an ongoing cycle of radicalization and recruitment. Extremists who join the organizations frequently use their online presence, their uh, social media profiles to share their experiences and convince others to join the extremist cause. So in summary, the role of social media in radicalization is indeed multifaceted. So I can say that, it can serve as both an initial point of contact and also a tool for ongoing recruitment and propaganda. So the accessibility of content combined with individual susceptibilities underscores the critical need for interventions aimed at disrupting the online radicalization path. And Dr. Akça will discuss the conclusion, part of this research. In our paper, we also discuss some of the ways that we can deal with extremist content, and also some of the ways to de-radicalize or disengage individuals from extremist organizations.
Thanks, Mehmet. And as Mehmet said, based on the model that we are proposing, we recommend some policies. Actually, these are policies both for government organizations and non-governmental organizations, and even individuals and even communities. So based on those 4 steps, there are things to be done to address the problem, to prevent online radicalization and the impacts of online, the use of internet and in the terrorism issues. So the first one is deplatforming. So we propose that government organizations, specifically law enforcement, should collaborate with tech companies like social media companies such as Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, TikTok, whatever it is. There are lots of platforms right now. There should be a strong and close collaboration with those companies so that the content disseminated by the terrorist groups should be monitored, and both monitored and removed. For removal of that content, we need a close monitoring of the content. And actually now, since our study was published, the developments in the AI technologies gave us more tools to deal with these issues, because the AI technologies can help law enforcement and other institutions dealing with these issues to monitor the content and remove the content based on certain features. Like if any content includes certain words, keywords, or images, whatever it is, those contents can be automatically removed from those platforms. So there should be that kind of use of AI for the good purpose to remove those contents so that we can address the accessibility part. remember that the first step of our model was accessibility. To remove the accessibility of those content, we need that kind of use of technology and use of AI. And also AI, the developments in AI brings more threats, more opportunities for the terrorist groups, and more threats for governments and the victims of terrorism, because the terrorist organizations can use now the AI technologies to create more content. So it facilitated their content creation and dissemination of their propaganda. So there is a threat and opportunity from the use of AI. And what should be done is basically the laws might be enough, but we need more strict policies to monitor these content, to control the tech companies, the social media companies. Uh, just their voluntary use of AI or voluntary use of these technologies to deal with extremist content will not be enough. There should be written policies and oversight, strict oversight on the use of those policies, application of those policies by the governments and international bodies, so that the tech companies can be held accountable for their content removal activities. And maybe on the civil society side, non-governmental side, we should talk about counter narratives. So the narratives created by the terrorist groups are aiming to disseminate the propaganda, recruit more people, and other activities. On the other side, we talk about the need. We talk about in our steps of the model, the need for information. So as people need more information about their worldviews, they become more susceptible. So to address those needs, to address those information needs, the civil society should develop the counter narratives, and the governments should promote those moderate voices for each. It's not for the Islamist radicalism, or for all different types of radical ideologies. There are both moderate views, moderate voices, and there are the extremist voices. For Islamist extremism, we can talk about the moderate version of Islam, or the original version of Islam, which is actually moderate in its nature. And also for right-wing ideologies, there is the moderate version of right-wing ideologies. There is the far-right version of that. And left-wing, there is the left-wing ideologies and extremist left-wing ideologies. So to make that distinction between the moderate version and the extremist version of all sorts of ideologies, the moderate voices should be promoted. The counter narratives should be developed by civil society and promoted by the governmental and not then international bodies. And the other policy recommendation that would be given based on our model is rehabilitation. So based on the detection of the susceptible people, the people who use the internet to get radicalized, or in the process of being radicalized, these people can be detected by law enforcement based on the content that they share or they interact with. And then kind of de-radicalization programs can be developed for those individuals. These programs can be online and offline, but once you detect those people, rather than punishing them, rather than giving them harsh sentences, because they were not involved in terrorist acts yet, they are just in the process. Once you detect those people, you can uh, invite those people to be involved in de-radicalization programs. And as we said, the susceptibility part, some people are more susceptible to extremist ideas because of their life experiences, because of their problematic family history, or drug use and other issues. Those are the root causes of radicalization. It's not just the internet, it's not just the use of social media, but the combination of the use of internet with those root causes. So addressing those root causes is highly important to address the online radicalization problem. So these are the policy recommendations. As I said, our study was focusing on Islamist extremism, but these policy recommendations and also our model is applicable to all different types of radical views, including far right, left wing, and other types of radical views. So thanks for listening, and if you have any questions, please feel free to share, and Mehmet and I will try to answer. So freedom of speech is really important, and protecting freedom of speech is as important as fighting against radicalization and extremism. So there should be a balanced approach, I think, and that collaboration that I mentioned between law enforcement and tech companies and the policies, like the written policies, should ensure that the thin line between freedom of expression and radical content should be understood very well. There should be an agreed upon definition of what makes a content extremist, and then what makes the moderate version of, as I said, for each ideology, there are moderate versions and extremist versions. And the policies should be strict on that, like what is making a content extremist. And there should be an agreed upon definition of those. And that's the main issue in the terrorism literature. There is always a blurring line between the freedoms and extremism. And that collaboration, I think, and written policies and strict oversight of those policies will bring the best way to deal with. But that there is going to be always kind of a, again, still blurring lines in between these two important issues. We should look at this case by case. But the oversight bodies, international agreed upon definitions and regulations should ensure that balance, I think.
So I think we probably need a balanced approach again here. There are indeed several de-radicalization and disengagement programs all around the world. And when we look at the successful interventions, we see that they typically involve some sort of soft power approaches, such as community programs, support networks, career guidance, and rehabilitation programs. There are several indeed rehabilitation programs that are carried out in prisons or out of the prisons. So these programs are, in general, are effective in dealing with radicalization. So those interventions had the potential to address the root causes of extremism. And if we really want to fix this problem, to deal with radicalization, we need to focus on the root cause. And those interventions, particularly, those with more preemptive, using more preemptive approach, can help communities build a resilience, and they are typically more sustainable in the long term. And there are also policies in Europe as well, several disengagement, radicalization, and rehabilitation programs. But in the same time, reactive strategies like using law enforcement to deal with this extremist, content, or like the extremist activities. This is also essential to address the immediate threat and also to contain the spread of radicalization.
Maybe I touched upon that in the policy recommendation part a bit, but the use of AI for content removal and detection of the content is something that the states can do. Like the new technologies can be used, as I said, for certain keywords, for certain images, and removal of those content automatically by, again, working collaboratively with the tech companies. Again, being careful about not stereotyping certain communities, because if you completely rely on AI, the control of that AI or technologies should be, again, in the hands of human leaders, and the government should be careful about not stereotyping certain communities, certain contents, so that it's important to understand the originals, the moderate versions of those ideologies. If you are speaking about the Islam and Islamist ideologies, there is an established, established literature on the originals of the religion. Or if it is another ideology, the moderate version. So the governments should be completely aware of the original and moderate voices, and then the AI technologies for detection of the radical content should be based on that understanding, I think. But Mehmet maybe have more ideas on that or answer the question.
So yes, AI can be used to detect those like videos and posts, and it can be used in deep platforming, attempts. Indeed, when we look at the 2015 information, as I mentioned, like the Brookings Institute published that research, identified more than 40,000 social media accounts supporting terrorist organizations. However, I believe this number is not high as that today because of those, attempts. So social media platforms today um, use certain algorithms to detect those activities, those posts, and then they remove them from their platforms. And we can see that it actually works well. But again, as you mentioned, we should be cautious about labeling these groups, or I mean, users or hosts. This is not indeed an easy task, but over time, those algorithms they improve, right? So they can find not only actually extremist materials, but we use those algorithms today also find other criminal activities, and they really work well. And so I think in the future, the AI will be, it will improve even further, and they can be used to deal with those problems, extremist content online.
Thank you. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Mhm.